Hey everyone, welcome back to the Spector Creative channel. I'm Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. Welcome, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for spending some time with us today. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that, like me, you got the new Hasbro Haslab Cantina, or maybe you don't have it in hand yet. I don't have mine in hand either, but we've got notification that it's coming pretty quick at this point. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time from here to here. Heck, it's been a long time from here to here. Getting Pwned Bobber right and actually having two different colors. All right, so we're going to jump in and we're going to go through every Cantina action figure released by Hasbro and where its proper place is as far as film accuracy. And if you are a longtime fan, subscriber of this channel, great way to support it. Check out my new book, The Nile Quest, available on Amazon. It's a real Indiana Jones adventure of Burton and Speke, two English explorers searching for the source of the Nile, Lake Victoria, in the mid-19th century. It's a fast-paced book, great for pools, summer getaways, plane rides, etc. Check it out on Amazon. Links in the description. Let's jump into the Cantina video. All right, so we are at the tail end of 2025, and Hasbro's Cantina Haslab should be shipping soon, which means if you're like me and have been collecting Star Wars action figures for decades, you're prepared to, turn this into something a lot cooler. Now, to understand where all the characters live, if you will, or sit in the Cantina, I looked at a lot of material. I looked at, reference books. I looked at, 3D cutaway books, and I looked at a lot of behind-the-scenes footage. Now, it's important to realize that the Cantina never actually existed, right? It was the combination of different aliens that were on the set in Tunisia, where principal photography was done, and then pickup shots that were done in Elstree Studios in England months, if not a year, later. So this is where all of Rich Baker's masks came into play. And this was also the reason that Lucas couldn't promote the Cantina for a while, because he didn't own the rights to any of these masks. That's why there were no Cantina characters in the first couple waves of Kenner figures and Topps cards. When they finally got them in a year or two later, it was because Lucas had to buy the rights to those masks. He didn't realize he didn't own the rights to them when he put them in. All right, that's a whole other YouTube video. So let's talk about changing this into this. And it's important to note that even if you bought the base version or the one with the extra seats, we're going to go through the whole thing and even show where even some extra seats really need to be. So, as I said in the beginning, there was a bunch of aliens that were on set in Tunisia. Now, for the most part, these aliens tended to be in Mos Eisley, right? Like Mosep there, who we actually did get as a figure. He's seen walking around, but he is in the Cantina. There he is next to, behind Snaggletooth, or Tequil there on the bottom right when Han is leaving. So you can also see the other one is in that alcove on the left. It's kind of the very last alcove in the Cantina before you hit the back wall. So yeah, all of those characters, including the infamous not Greedo, because Greedo wears a vest. And the Rhodian in that famous shot is this one here, who's not wearing a vest, who's all the way to the left in the first alcove, or the middle alcove. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack, and you have to realize all of those wide shots only had the characters and the aliens that were there on set in Tunisia. So, you can see not Greedo there, not wearing a vest, very close to Nebrian Leeds. Also on the left side, you can see Lilu Snib. Oh gosh, I'm butchering her name, but she also hangs out on the left side. All right, looking at that picture again of the ones that were available, you'll see there's two of a lot of aliens. So the mouse-faced Colonel can be seen in the streets of Mos Eisley, but again, like Mosep and the other one of Jabba's accountant dudes, they are in the Cantina. We never got figures of either of these. Salo Mahal and the Colonel, well, whatever they are called. Like I said, they're in Mos Eisley, and it's a lot easier to spot them, even though they're really only seen from the back. But yeah, they are in the Cantina. One of them is right next to Luke when he first walks in to the Cantina. You can sort of see him briefly there. This is actually a very important behind-the-scenes shot. because not only are you seeing one of these mouse-faced bureaucrats, but if you look behind him, there's a bunch of other very important characters, like Walizia, the guy who sold Luke his or bought the land speeder, from Luke. So while he's prominently seen in the streets, yeah, he's back there. So is the other mouse bureaucrat and fly guy, or I think his name is like Tzit or something like that. So you can see they're all back there in the first alcove, including real Greedo. So that's Greedo there next to the fly guy who's covered by the Jawa in front of him. And you can see Rioslia and Mosep there, or the other Mosep. So yeah, that's Greedo's starting position. You can see that the other Rhodians were reused also during the Docking Bay 94 Jabba the Hutt scene, which is in the special edition. So, yeah, there were several what they called Martian, or what wound up being Rhodian, masks that were available on location, and the mask was then remade by Rick Baker for close-up shots. So if we look at this shot, that's kind of the only one of the entire left to right, you can see, yeah, fake Greedo all the way to the left and real Greedo all the way to the right. All right, so let's go around the bar here, starting from, left side, then we'll go around the center, and we'll head into the back, and we'll identify all of the characters. So, starting with the Tonica sisters, of course, if you look above Wooker, the bartender's right shoulder, that bearded dude is the same bearded dude standing right in the middle, one of Jabba's goons. So yeah, not just the aliens, but pretty much all the people walking around Mos Eisley or in Docking Bay 94 are in the cantina in some aspect. There's a lot of humans, and we don't have many human action figures. So, Cantina is going to be without them. But the next alien going around the bar is going to be Tequil, one of the snaggle teeth. I'm sorry, it's not Tequil. This one's actually... no, it is Tequil. The other one's Zutton. I know, it gets confusing. This one isn't anything. This character, who's also been released as an action figure, Zutton, is actually from the holiday special. Despite fan art like this, it makes it look like he's in the cantina. He isn't. He actually did wind up on the card for the original Snaggletooth figure. It's the only card of a figure not in the movie. He is in the holiday special, though. There you can see him on the left side. So there were two Snaggle teeth, Sivians, I think is the species, Snivians. So you can see, again, walking around Mos Eisley, there's Mosep again in the background. And then here's one of them. So this is Tequil, who's only had one figure release in a Cantina Alien 3-pack. And then this is Zutton, who's sitting over by the front. You can see him very clearly when Han is leaving the bar. So, or when Luke is entering. So he's on the right side behind that bald guy with the arrow pointing to him. All right, so as we swing around the front of the cantina, we have a Croc next to Tequil, and then Nebrian Leeds, who's being released with the cantina. The Croc that's on his left, we haven't gotten as a figure. We've gotten the other Croc. And then we have the little person that's next to him, followed by the other Croc, the one we did get as an action figure, and then the smoking dude. I know, they all have names, but I just go look them up, nerds. I can't remember. I know this one's Cabe, so he's next, going around the bar, although he doesn't show up till halfway through the cantina. But yeah, if you want to place him there, so there we go. That's who's in front. Now on the right side, we get a grubby-looking human and Ponda Baba. I think that grubby-looking human is Dr. Evazan. Next to Ponda Baba is Luke, Ben, Chewie. And then between Ben and Chewie is Boshek, who did get a figure thanks to Adam Paulus and his constant saying he doesn't deserve a figure back in the early 2000s, but he got one. And then behind him, Kid Katak, the praying mantis, who should be green. The figure released has been brown. So you can kind of see him back there in the movie, but in some of the behind the scenes, yeah, you can really see he's right behind Obi-Wan. You'll also notice that there's a flat wall behind him, not another alcove, which is going to be an issue later. So we're going to have to kind of pretend that's a door. So what about all the other ones? What about all the aliens that got added after the fact? Well, that's what's going to kind of fill up the booths. So that's what's a little tricky. So we're going to kind of figure out who goes where. We'll start outside the cantina with the Mos Eisley Jawa that just shipped with the streets of Mos Eisley. And now I've placed all of the characters that we just discussed into this image, right where they should be. Starting with I've got the Tonica sisters back there. We have Mosep in the back of the booth going around. We've got Tequil, Nebian Leeds, the Croc guy, then the smoking guy. going around. We've got Cabe, we have a Jawa, we have real Greedo and Wasilia, the land speeder seller. Now, when we're figuring out the booths, that's kind of a whole other issue. There were booths on set, like the famous one that obviously Han, Chewie, Ben, and Luke are in with the deal for the Millennium Falcon. So let's just say for the moment that's the front booth here, but we're actually going to wind up moving them in a moment. If we want to get to all of the other booths, we're also going to have to, again, take into account who was on set, because there's some contradictions. Now, you'll notice there's a Greedo head there all the way to the left with the new masks that were introduced in Elstree Studios. Because, yes, Greedo was redone for close-up shots. This was they made one booth and basically relit it several times. Now, one of the other things that's a little sketchy is when they reshot Greedo, behind him is not the bar. It should be the bar. So instead it's these two guys who you can barely see in the film, Duros number 3 and Milo number 2. All right, so let's get to the actual tables and see if we can decipher who is at each table and where they are. And again, we already do have alcoves and booths. You can see Mosep, Jawa's accountant there, and not Greedo in 2 of them on the left. And then on the right, again, you can see Wasilia, the land speeder buyer, and the mouse-faced fat bureaucrat, as well as Fly Guy. So this is kind of the same booth as is used by the post-production. So, yeah, there's also the fact that there's 2 booths behind the bar, where the Hasbro one doesn't include these. It does include holes to plug one in, so maybe they'll make that final booth, the 4th one. There should be 1, 2, 3 is what you get, but there should be a 4th one in the back. And you can still put a table back there. So you're going to see how we'll sort of mock that up in order to fill our cantina. Let's start with the most obvious of the booths, the one that has Figure Don and the modal nodes, in which case there are 7 of them. Now, we're hinted that they are on the right side by Luke looking to the right and then cutting to the modal nodes. And pretty much all of the behind-the-scenes material all puts them in that 3rd alcove on the right side. Again, the 4th alcove is not part of the Hasbro set, but could be recreated because, again, in the real cantina on set, there was a wall. There was no 4th alcove. That was created kind of after the fact. The real cantina never actually existed. None of these modal nodes were on set. So, all right, we're going to label them in alcove number 3 there. So let's move up to alcove number 1 and 2 on the right. And yeah, as we can see, on set, it was occupied by this group of aliens here. So we can start by kind of laying them in, the Jawa, actual Greedo, and the land speeder seller buyer. But we also have to match it with this alcove, which was done in post-production. Both of these alcoves, these characters, occupy the exact same space. So we're going to recreate this in toy form, which is the Lax Sivrak and Dice Ibian sort of standoff with Labria, the Devil Man, in the back. So you can see him behind there, a little blurry, but yeah, he's definitely in this alcove, which you can see from this behind-the-scenes shot. So we're essentially combining this post-production shot with the actual on-set shot. And then, of course, in the special edition, Lax Sivrak, the Wolfman, got replaced by Ketwall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in the back of this booth with the land speeder, seller, Greedo, and the Jawa in the front. Because they kind of do, they're basically sharing the same booth. Even though we can see that wall, we don't really see it in the film, so let's just assume that, next to the land speeder buyer are these 3 guys. They're just off, they're behind the wall, we can't see them because of that shot. And, like I said, the cantina never existed, which is why we're having to kind of combine some of this stuff. All right, that takes care of alcove number 3 and alcove number 2. What about alcove number 1? Well, that's this one, which was which was Moma Nadone and a Gotal. So, yeah, easy to do. Now, this Gotal in the left there, that is not the one we have as an action figure for. So we're going to get to where he goes in a moment. And we do have action figures, of course, for Hammerhead, a.k.a. Moma Nadone, and Terminal Man, a.k.a. Trento Dabwa. The Godel in the middle there that we do have as an action figure is seated at a different table. In fact, there are not one, not two, but three Godels in the Cantina. So Philippian Travag is at a different table. The Godel number 2 is the one that is at the table with Momo Nadon, and we don't have a figure of him yet. So that chair can be left open, and hopefully Hasbro will get to the second Godel, and now that we have a Cantina. All right, so we filled them out, and I made Momo Nadon a little bigger because he was a deluxe figure. All right, what about the other side? Well, we talked about one of them is obviously with Han, Chewie, Ben, and Luke, where they make the Millennium Falcon deal. Originally, I had them in the front here, but I noticed for looking at the actual on-set footage, we have not Greedo in one of the alcoves, and then we have Mosep in the alcove behind him. So which alcove is the one that Han, Luke, Chewie, and Ben sit in? Well, remember that people actually moved around. So this alcove that had not Greedo becomes the alcove that Han sits in with Luke and Obi-Wan and Chewie. So basically, yeah, different characters use the same space. So while originally I had placed them on the bottom here, the correct position is the second alcove, which you can actually tell from looking over Han's shoulder exactly where it's located. All right, so that covers those two, as well as we know Slibian Lib. I'm screwing up her name. It's the pink alien chick with the big head there in the front. All right, so next up we've got the Duroses, which unfortunately we've only gotten one 3 3/4 Duros, but they go here in the front one. And if we had the second one, they could sit together. All right, so now we've got 5 out of 6 alcoves. What about this last one back here? Well, like I said, it's occupied by Mosep in the actual on-set. But we can assume that either maybe he's just to the right of Dijash Pur, because there's the other aliens that in the post-production wound up in that spot. So you have multiple shots of them actually in the film, where we have Milo, Dijash Pur, we have the Cantina, the band's manager is there. He hasn't had a figure yet. All right, now we have this one here. Now this is an odd one because, like I said, we've already filled up the Cantina. So where in the world do we put these guys? Well, in the behind-the-scenes footage, or the cutaways and the diagrams, like I said, there is a 4th table behind the bar that is accessible through a doorway. The doorways are included in the Hasbro set, but not the walls. So you can see here that they were not present on the set, but we can kind of use a little disbelief and maybe assume that that wall actually is a door, and you can set up an additional table behind that door at the back of the Cantina and set up a 4th table for both of these very well shot these characters that have a lot of shots in the Cantina. All right, so one of those tables is the one with the other Godel and Maimaruthun and Ghostface. I'm butchering that. And then the other table is the one with the other Wolfman, Brainiac, the other Terminal Man, who I think was called Fu Manchu because he had a mustache, and Brainiac there. So they're in the back. But there is another way we could display them, besides having to just set up a table. So remember that Duros table that only had 2 characters, in fact only has 1 because the other Duros hasn't been made yet? Well, we could take that booth, and we could take the booth that eventually gets used for the Millennium Falcon deal, and we can pop in those 2 alien sets. So table number 1 with the Godel and Myruth Uth and Ghostface, and table 2 with Hermie Amazon, Bomb Vizon, Fu Manchu, Brainiac, and the other Wolfman can go in those 2 places. And of course there's also some stormtroopers that show up, and there's Blue Snaggletooth and Garindin, who are kind of outside the Cantina. We'll just sort of leave them there for the moment. So yeah, either we could set up those 2 tables in the back as 4th tables. We just don't have back walls, but we could put a table there. Or we simply move them up, and they become the occupants of Han's booth, and they share that front left booth with the Duros. So that's it. Those are pretty much where every character that has had an action figure released by Hasbro in the modern line is in canon. at where they're supposed to be. Like I said, it's a little tough because the cantina never existed. So it's a combination of on-set and post-production shots. But based on what Hasbro's giving us and based on all the characters, I think we can put something together. Cool. Well, I can't wait to get my cantina. Let me know what you guys think. How are you going to display it? Are you going to display it, film accurate? Are you going to make it like Mandalorian and put, a droid behind the bar and have, some new aliens? So, yeah, you can even go holiday special. We haven't even talked about that. So, but I hope this video is helpful and shows you where all the characters were in the movie for the new Hasbro Dollhouse. And thank you for watching, supporting, and sharing these videos. It's the best way to keep this channel going, and I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Check out Nile Quest on Amazon. Link in the description. See you guys in the next video.